Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
We hope you enjoy listening to this podcast of St. Louis on the Air, brought to you by University College at Washington University. With undergraduate and graduate programs, part-time, evening, and online. University College at Washington University, offering world-class education within reach.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. Oscar Wilde's comedic play, The Importance of Being Earnest, is billed as a trivial comedy for serious people. It was written in 1895 and is the next production of St. Louis's Insight Theater Company. The play has been around for almost a century and a quarter. Why has it endured, and how well does it hold up today? We'll get some insight on that from actor-comedian Ed Reggi, who is the director of this production. Also with us is actor Tom Murray, who plays the role of Lady Bracknell in the production. Tom, let's start right there. Lady Bracknell?
Yes, indeed.
Well, tell me about that.
Well, it's quite a plum for my career, let's say that. The last two major productions of the show, both in London's West End and on Broadway, featured men playing the role of Lady Bracknell. So I'm excited to be able to carry on that tradition here in St. Louis.
Well, it must be quite an interesting wardrobe for you.
Oh, it is. And actually the dresses are gorgeous. I put them on for the first time last night with the full wig and makeup and everything, and I thought, oh, my God, I look like my mother.
Well, your mother was a very attractive lady.
I would agree, yes.
Yeah. Ed, let me turn to you. How well does an 1895 Victorian comedy play in 2018?
You know, I think it plays very well. And the reason why I think it does is because I think there's a lot of material that's contemporary that borrows from that Oscar Wilde frame. You know, I think the sensation in the last decade of, a lot of the dramas and comedies of Masterpiece Theater, on PBS, sort of the Downton Abbey, that entire Gillian Fellows, Upstairs, Downstairs, does a very good at borrowing that wit and that cleverness. I mean, everything that was said by Lady Grantham, Violet, is Oscar Wilde, almost lifted right from the pages.
Well, this is comedy, and that's a little bit different than drama, and it's a different social time. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering how you freshen that up, or if it needs to be fresh.
I don't think it does. In fact, early on in the stages of rehearsal, I told the cast that this is, there are productions of Oscar Wilde's Importance of Being Earnest that are really radically updated. I mean, there was a production in New York that was done they moved it to the 20s during the Prohibition. We chose, not to do that. We kept it really in its original form, and we're playing the language. It's a language play. It is a comedy, but it's not slapstick. It's not over the top. We're not going for the gag jokes. You don't need to. But I do think it plays because this idea of, at the core of this play, it's really about who are we in public versus who are we in private? Mm-hmm. And I think that speaks to today's current feel of people that are in public. Are they the same they are in private?
Well, that's why reality TV plays so well.
It does. It does. It does.
Tom, can I just ask you to kind of give us a synopsized version of what the story is all about?
Well, it's really simple. There are two young couples, and in the classic tradition of romantic couples since the Romans and the Greeks, they want to get together and they want to have relationships, but there are all these barriers that keep them from doing that, including their class structure and their personalities and, of course, their meddling elders, which would be me in this particular play. And it's about how they overcome these barriers to find their own real personalities. I think it's great.
You've been around for a while. Is it easier or harder to play something that was written 125 years ago compared to something that's more modern?
It is not easier or harder. I think it's any challenge to an actor is always going to be the same, which is to find the truth in the character. What's great about this play is a lot of the things we say are things we're saying now, because the dialogue is very topical for today with the class structures that we're dealing with and the conflicts between the wealthy and the common folks. So I think it's
the
great.
1% and the rest of
The
us.
other 1% and the rest of us. This is a play about the 1% in England at the end of the 19th century, and just, how ridiculous they may appear to some of us.
Ed, that really does bring us into the current era, doesn't it?
It does. I think the beautiful part about this, about Oscar Wilde, is that he's really able to kind of stand the test of time. I know it sounds cliche, but when I'm really watching this show over and over in rehearsal, there's so much that relates to what we're seeing on. I said to someone the other day that at the time Oscar Wilde, there was no social media. Of course, 125 years ago, but plays were that format of getting across the idea of messages and or anti-political kind of jabs at class structure, and it's all in there. It's all in this. It's hold the test of time.
Well, it must, because it's been around for a long time, and it has played with some consistency for the last 125 years.
Absolutely. It just was on Broadway about 2011 or 12.
Yes.
West End production. It's done regionally all over. The United States and Canada. It's one of those plays that really just is. Of course, it's done a lot in colleges and universities. I think that's the first place people may get their a lot of acting. I know I did when I was doing my undergraduate. That's the place where you kind of learn it first. But I definitely think it's one of those pieces that really kind of rings true. And I think it's what I love about this production is this cast that I have is just amazing. And one of the things that I'm so excited about, Ruth Ezell is playing Miss Prism, and sort of the tutor of one of the young lovers that Tom mentioned of. And Ruth Ezell is just, I think the world of her. I'm a transplant here. I've been here 20 years. But she is just amazing in this production. So I just want to give her a little shout out.
Well, thanks for doing that. She's a former colleague in the television world.
Yeah.
Still is with Channel 9,
right.
Needless to say. So, but that brings to mind the notion of a mixed-race cast.
Correct. Early on, Maggie Ryan, artistic director and founder of Insight Theater, has always given that freedom and latitude to really kind of stretch, casting abilities, and there's no limitation. So early on, Maggie had asked me, and I said, absolutely, this is perfect. And so, I think it plays nicely, and there's not, of course, when you're watching it, she fits the role perfectly, and there's no issue of her being an African American tutor to this high social class young lady.
To that degree, Tom, this world of acting has changed a lot, and I give a lot of the credit for that to Hamilton, for instance, which really brought this to the public's attention because of its popularity. Why not mixed race casts?
Oh, I think it's marvelous. It's an incredible development, and as a high school teacher, and I've been teaching high school for 40 years, a diverse cast is something you have to do on those academic theaters because they have to learn. And sometimes the best casting for a certain role would be somebody who would not be the traditional type of person to cast there, but you do it anyway because that's the best person for the part. And I think that's the way all theater should be.
I wonder how well audiences are adjusting to that. I mean, do either of you have any sense of that?
I don't think audiences care at all about who's playing the role as long as the role is being played as beautifully as Ruth is playing Miss Prism in our production and as beautifully as the actors on Broadway played in Hamilton, which was an incredible show.
Yeah.
Well, I think also the part that I like about it, also as one that teaches acting in St. Louis, I like when my students tell me, especially students that aren't all my non-white students say to me that they really saw themselves in that production, and they wouldn't if we traditionally just cast the roles as they would be from 125 years ago. So to me, that's the powerful part. They can come as an audience member and see themselves on stage. That's important.
Which then gives them the desire to go pursue this,
Correct.
which I think is a great thing.
Correct.
On the other side of the coin, you read from time to time, and we've been reading lately about The King and I, for instance. There are some Asian actors and actresses have been upset because they've used non-Asians to play some of the roles in a story that's all about Asians, if you will. So that's the other side.
Sure, and I think to use the example of what we were just talking about, I know when the national tour of Next to Normal was coming through. I mean, Pearl Sun played the mother role, the main role, and audiences. I mean, she did a fantastic job. Of course, she's on fantastic opera. I guess to a point was Tom saying as if you fit the role. And you're really the right perfect person for the role, I don't think that the race should play a role in it. Now, saying that, I think if the role is critical, that the role has to be played by an Asian actor or an African-American actor, I do think it is important to maintain that because of the integrity. And I think that's where it becomes a really tricky situation, for producers.
Do you think you have more latitude in experimenting with things like this and others because of the size of the company?
Yes, for that, for sure. I think the size of the company, and I also think as part of me feels, it's also 125-year-old Oscar Wilde's not around. His estate's not around to really, and I think there's something about commercial theater that. There's a plus and minus, and I think a pro and a con. And I think in this situation, we could take advantage of the fact that we can interpret it any way we want to. And I think that's the freedom I like as a director, that I don't have those constraints that maybe per se, a particular piece that's only been written 20 years that says you must cast this role.
Yeah. Tom, maybe you can help me understand something, because part of what I said in the introduction about this being a trivial comedy for serious people, what does that mean?
Well, I think it means that the seriousness, I think, refers to the fact that the people take themselves so seriously. Right. The triviality, I think, comes from the fact that what they're serious about, to the vast majority of us, we're like, what? Really? This is what you're worried about? Oh, come on, man. This is not at all important in the big scheme of the world.
But when I see trivial comedy, it makes me think that that's a put-down.
It's not really a put-down. I think what it is it's an expression of the fact that the play centers on elements that may be considered trivial, but to the characters in the play, they're extremely serious.
Extremely serious, yeah. Well, I think the idea is that this is definitely one of those productions that you come, you leave, the stress at the door. You're gonna laugh. It's like I said, a great cast. You're gonna have a good time. In that regard, you kind of let go of what's going on in your life a little bit and have fun. Lay back and laugh at this ridiculous family intertwining and all the things that happen.
You're also going to have discussions, as I understand it, after the Sunday performances. What's to discuss? Just the what people have just seen, or how is that going to be structured?
Generally, Inside Theater, they've been doing this 11th season, and I know when I've been an actor in the company for other productions, they come on stage and it's literally a discussion about the process. Sometimes it could be about the process. It could be about the background. How do you actually mount a production? And then it can also be just basic questions that people might have about Oscar Wilde.
And it's an amazing thing as an actor. You sit there waiting for people to ask you, what are the deep insights of your character? And blah, blah. And a lot of times all they want to know is, how do you memorize all those lines?
Right.
Well, that's always a question. And you're at a new venue this year, Ed.
Correct. Yeah. For this production, we're at the Grandel Theater, which is amazing, beautiful, in Grand Center where we're at right now. And it's just an amazing house. I'm so glad we're there.
Yeah, the Kranzberg Arts Center has done an incredible job of upping the stakes in St. Louis with the many venues that they've rehabbed and gotten ready for our companies here. It's awesome.
And there's not a bad seat. I'm not just
saying
there's not a bad seat in that theater. You could sit anywhere, and you're up close.
Only a few seconds left. Anything else on the playbill for the rest of the year? Is this it?
Well, there's the next production that's coming up is, oh my gosh, I've totally gone blank. Well, check out our website for sure. I don't know why I'm going blank on that. I've totally.
It means you're getting old, Ed, and it happens to me all the time.
Don't tell my agent.
We'll put a link to your website on ours at stlpublicradio.org. The Importance of Being Earnest runs from July 12th through 22nd to the Grandel Theater in Grand Center, showing at 8 o'clock on Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays, and 2 o'clock on Sunday. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us. And Reggie, great to see you. And, break a leg, as they say.
Thank you.
Tom Murray, same to you. Hope you have a wonderful performance, and I'm sure you will.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, gentlemen, for being with us. Archive versions of past St. Louis On the Air programs are available for download or podcast at stlpublicradio.org/STLOnAir. St. Louis On the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio 90.7 KWMU. Thanks for listening. I'm Don Marsh.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.